The Philadelphia Fusion faced the Toronto Defiant later in the semifinals of the Summer Showdown, and I thought it was important to revisit this team before their game later today, because there are a lot of exciting storylines going on, especially against the underdog, the Toronto Defiant. Now, first things first, I do want to say, I don't think the Defiant are going to win this, but I don't want to smack them now that they've upset two teams in a row. Either way, I think it'll be exciting, and it's really cool to see an underdog make it this far. But either way, I've been very happy with what we've seen from the Fusion so far this tournament, and I thought we should get into that. First off, probably you could tell from the headline of this video, is EQO the answer for the Fusion? I think he is. Honestly, I think this Fusion roster, they're so close to putting it all together. We know they're a great team. Their regular season record is impeccable. Like, seriously, these guys are a great team. But the thing is, we're trying to compare them to the Shock, right? Like, if you take the Shock out of the league, these guys are great. Several of these guys, especially Carpe, were there season 1 when they made the finals. These guys know what it's like to get to the top of the league, and they've been a consistent top team. Obviously during GOATS it wasn't quite as dominant, but now backing in a fragging meta, they're solid again, and Carpe of course went nuts this series. But I want to talk about EQO because we all know Carpe is great. He's always going to be great, and I'll revisit Carpe in a bit. Either way, I feel like this roster has struggled a bit with finding what pieces to put in. Next to Carpe, they've had EQO play a little bit this season on the EQO, but I think that was a long time ago and it wasn't for very long. And Hizu was alright, nothing spectacular. So I was actually super happy to see EQO here because I think Carpe and EQO kind of have a little bit of that chemistry from season 1 when they were super dominant and made the finals. Obviously, they weren't the best team in the regular season, but they did make the finals and it was impressive and they're a great team. I'm sorry about that if I broke my chain of thought. My dogs got excited. They heard me talking about EQO and they wanted to join in the conversation. But either way, I was saying I think these guys played great together back in season 1. And that EQO, he has a lot of flexibility on some of the heroes that Carpe doesn't play, like the Genji we see, which is obviously huge in the current meta. And we see the Hanzo, even though that's not currently in the meta, we know he's good at it. And I think he's probably better than Hisu at the Genji. So I was really happy to see him here, and it was important for them to figure out that piece. I know the commentators were discussing it, that Carpe, he's your best Widow and your best Ashe and your best Tracer. How do you fit around that? The rest of the team is solid. I like Sato and Fury, especially Fury. Even though Sato's has a bit of a reputation for not being the best main tank, he fits in well enough with this team, and I don't think they need to worry about replacing him too urgently. And then the last problem for this roster came with Boombox and Alarm and Funny Astro, and I really think that Boombox and Alarm is probably their best option at support now. I think Alarm is a smart player, and even though the skill ceiling might be limited when you put him onto the Brigitte, he's very smart with the way he plays compared to some of his teammates. Like, not his teammates are garbage at Brigitte, but I think maybe they think he's just so much better at Brigitte than his teammates than he is on Baptiste than his teammates, that it works out. And obviously Brigitte is a very key piece at the moment in the meta, and so having a smart player there and a solid foundation there is important. And so I think they've figured out the support line well. I really wasn't a big fan of Funny Astro's performance in round 1. I thought there were some questionable beats, and overall I don't know how much impact he had on the game, but either way this video is obviously more about the DPS, and I think that's where they finally figured it out with EQO in this lineup. They all played really well, and I want to talk about EQO as an individual now. He didn't have the flashiest plays. There were definitely his moments, which you need from your Genji, especially from a top tier team like this. But his blades, like this one we see on screen, didn't get a ton of value. There were a lot of those where they weren't always amazing, but a lot of them were kind of similar to that, where it didn't light up the kill feed, but they put in a ton of work, and obviously that one didn't work out well. But other examples were similar, where they didn't frag out as much himself, but he was able to get out a lot of value and distraction, which you've seen from a lot of Genjis actually, is you don't need to pop off and get a ton of kills. You simply need to distract the team and use resources from the other enemies so that the rest of your team can go and kill the rest of the enemies. And I thought EQO did a really good job of that, of finding value in his play, even if it wasn't the kind of crazy play we might see from a Sparkle or a Doha. And not everybody can be that kind of level Genji. I don't think EQO is a top 3 Genji in the league, but I think he's a solid piece that fits his Fusion well for what they have. And honestly, if I was the Fusion's coaching staff here, their managers, I'd find it hard to try to replace EQO because I don't know the upcoming contenders talent. or what kind of trades would be available. But to me, it seems like it'd be hard to replace EQO's level of talent without messing up the team chemistry and the team flow of play. I really like the way he works together with his team, and especially with Carpe on the lineup. Do you necessarily need a second superstar if you can't get him? Like, do you want to risk, messing it up? Like, kind of like this past offseason, what we saw with Prophet. I'm going to use him as an example. We know Prophet's a great TPS, and if a player like Prophet's available for the Fusion, do you take it if you think it might mess up locker room atmosphere or team chemistry? I don't know. It's like kind of that balance of individual talent versus team chemistry, where I think EQO has enough of the individual talent to provide a solid second, fiddle for Carpe to duo with, while providing enough team value to make it really beneficial, and that's where I think most of his value comes in. And I don't want to discredit him, like, he is a great individual player, don't take me wrong, but I think most of the value for Carpe, or for EQO, comes in how well he fits with Carpe and the rest of the Fusion roster. Next up, I want to move on to Carpe himself, and wow, this guy went nuts, didn't he? I wasn't necessarily, I guess I'm going to say worried, a bit hesitant maybe, about how he performed today, because I know he's a great player, I think we all do, and he currently, before this match, led the league in KDA at like 2.2 final blows per life. I think it was final blows per life, right? And that's insane. That's a record setting for the Overwatch League. And considering it's been 3 years, the fact that he's leading it again is really impressive. But he went nuts today. He completely shut down Dante. And it's so hard as an Ashe or Widow to like consistently hit that headshot. Like, go back through this VOD. If you want to count the number of times he killed Dante, it wasn't even just normal kills with his dynamite or anything. Like, most of it was headshots. It was nuts. And you need that from your star player, which we got today. And we know he's capable of any day. Even if his off days are above average, like when he has days like this, it's going to be impossible for teams like the Outlaws to take him down. Even if Linkser and Dante are both good players. And I love Linkser, but I just did not feel like he could get much done today against the Fusion. I thought Carpe did such a solid job of shutting down Dante that EQO was able to just do whatever he wanted and not have to worry about anything really. Carpe could handle himself. He rarely needed support. Like, Carpe had a few armor packs given to him here and there, but for the most part, he was so capable of dealing with Dante on his own that it hardly mattered. Honestly, it felt like Carpe did to Dante what Ans did to Carpe last week, you know what I mean? Where Ans completely shut down Carpe, especially on Ilios. And then this week, Carpe did the same thing to Dante. And that was really when the Houston Outlaws game fell apart, Dante wasn't able to do anything. And we've seen so far against the Fusion 2 or 3 weeks ago, and then a little bit when they had the rematch, is that when Dante can't pop off, it makes it so hard for the Outlaws to get much done. Not necessarily that they're a really bad team, but I think Linkser and Dante are a solid DPS duo, but not the best in the league, and the rest of their roster isn't quite up to par. So if their DPS can't get much done, they're not going to get the win. And that's what happened here at the Fusion, because Carpe simply dominated. And there is obviously a lot of gameplay film breakdown to be done here, because they had 3 maps where they solidly, beat the Outlaws. But for this short little video, I'm just going to keep it simple and say this was individual mechanics coming over top of team play. Obviously, like right here, see EQO, he had a 4 kill right here. That was a really solid play from him. I really wanted that one to come up in this video. I was hoping my video would last long enough. Also, at the end of that, EQO had like 300 health. Like, isn't that nuts? But either way, Carpe, he just fragged out, and I hope he can keep it going, because it's going to need to happen if they're going to make the finals against the Shock and beat them. We already kind of expect them to make the finals over the Defiant, but you can't give them a free pass until they do it. They'll have to take down Agilities and Logics, and it'd be interesting to see how Logic performs against Carpe if they end up going for the mirror matchup, and how EQO fares against Agilities is actually going to be an extremely interesting matchup. Keep an eye on that one, actually, because I think EQO could challenge Agilities pretty fairly on the Genji. And then if Carpe can keep up his dominance, I don't think Logix has a chance, no matter how good Logix is. There's like such a skill gap there. Even if you say they're like the first and second Widowmakers in the league, which I would argue they're not. I'd say, Logix isn't quite the second best. But even if they were, there's just such a skill gap there sometimes when Carpe's on his game, that it's going to take a little bit more from Agilities to have to pressure Carpe than Dante was capable of. Either way, I think it'll be a super exciting series, and then if that can happen, they'll go against the Shock. And that's where it gets interesting again. We've already seen the Fusion get blown out by the Shock very, very recently. And so I love to see how much this EQO swap coming in will actually affect the series if it does go to a rematch. And the rest of the roster, Saddle Fury, I imagine will stay the same. And then Boombox and Alarm, I think they should start instead of Alarm and Funny Astro. So we did see Hisu a little bit actually on the last map of the series. So they're definitely still considering him an option. And I can't wait to see what the Fusion do with it. I think Carpe EQO is the look these guys want. I think they should go with that. So everybody enjoy the games later today. I know this Fusion Defiant game, not quite the one everyone was expecting, but I think the one that a lot of people are going to be watching now. I don't think I'm going to be doing another video today before the matches start, so I will talk a little bit about the Paris Eternal and Shock game. I think that'll be a really interesting test for the Shock, because I imagine that the Eternal will run a similar composition to what the Fusion are going to run. I think, look at EQO getting a ton of value in there. Obviously there's a little bit more cleanup, but just generating that value, playing so well as a team with this Genji, super strong. Anyways, the Paris Eternal I imagine are going to run a Widow and Genji at some point, or an Ashe Genji. If not, an Ashe Tracer maybe even? I don't know if that's going to go so well, because we've seen Tracer struggle a little bit, but I think it'll be really interesting to see how they handle Sparkle. If they can handle Sparkle super well, that'll spell trouble for EQO. But how they handle XZ and Soon. I really like XZ and Soon. I think they're two of my favorite players, especially Soon. Like, I like XZ, but I love Soon. He's one of my favorite players. And if they can't get it done against the Shock, it'll be interesting to see if Carpe and EQO can too, because I think Carpe is obviously one of the best players in the league. And I can't wait for a rematch between those two if that's what happens. But I honestly think that the Eternal are capable of upsetting the Shock. If any team they're facing is going to do it so far, this is the last chance, so we're going to be watching out for that. Now, I don't say I think they're capable, like, I don't want you guys to take my word wrong. I don't say they're capable of an upset, meaning I think they will upset the Shock. I'm just saying they are capable of it, even if it's like a 10 to 90 chance. So either way, whoever makes the finals, I'm actually super invested, because I love seeing the Shock dominate. I love seeing dynasties in sports, and if they can win this tournament, when do we start calling them a dynasty? If the Paris Eternal make it, what an upset! How cool is that? And they're one of my favorite teams. They have Soon, one of my favorite players. Kind of an underdog run. I don't think anybody really expected them to make it, even though there was only really talk of them about 1 week ago when they saw Sparkle's Genji. Before that, they were saying should they bench Sparkle. And then with the Fusion, I love seeing it because I'm a London Spitfire fan first and foremost. And so I feel kind of like this little rivalry between us because we faced off in the first season grand finals. But it's weird. I still like to see them succeed just because Carpe's so cool. I really like EQO. Alarm is a rising star, and Fury used to be on the Spitfire. So I'm interested to see them make it. And I'm interested to see the Toronto Defiant make it because even crazier run than the Eternal have had. So with all that said, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the games later. Check out my blog for more esports content and my YouTube channel, of course. Please comment below about any questions you have about these rosters, anything you've noticed from the games this past weekend. It's been super fascinating. I can't wait to dive into some of the deeper analysis as the week goes on once the tournament's over. See you guys next time.